This is the golden question. Hello, guys. This is going to be episode 2 of the Golden Question podcast, and today we're going to be answering a sort of complicated question that deserves an answer, and I feel like people are not accurately answering this question due to the consequences of this question and what this question could pertain. Because again, whenever the truth is always something that people do not like, and they try to avoid the truth by deceiving people, by lying. So the truth is never something like people always want to seek the truth, but sometimes the truth is ugly. And again, this may sound cliche, but sometimes the truth is ugly, and you would rather not face the truth and just continue on with your deception, continue on lying, because it currently in the moment provides you with the better scenario than if you were to actually move forward with the truth. And again, we see this throughout human history, throughout human life, and in the Quran and in the Bible, right? It teaches about the truth, which is what God prescribed to us. But a lot of people, they don't like the truth. They think that the truth is bad. It's going to disrupt their current state. If somebody has power and now they have to sort of give away their power because somebody else is telling them that it's not just for you to have that power. Obviously, they know it's probably not just, but they continue on with the lying and the deception. So I guess the main question we're going to ask is, can the United States actually recover from this? And what I mean by this is this current meltdown that we're having now. And my answer is, it depends on which route the United States wants to take. Because I think right now we're going to see a fork in the road of where the United States is heading. Either it can continue in its path and promulgate the problem in the current condition, make it even worse, as we're seeing now, and it's more alluding to the first condition that I'm going to say because of the current events that are happening now, with, again, more money printing, the Fed coming in, turning on the printing presses, and again, you don't even need a printing press, just add the money to their balance sheet from absolutely nowhere. And again, it's not real debt. It's debt. It's sort of this Fed uncontrolled debt. Because again, when you exercise in debt, you have savings, and then you can loan it out to someone. But the Fed doesn't have the savings. It just makes the money out of thin air. So there's two kinds of debt. Either you have savings to back it as collateral, or are you just making it out of thin air? And the making it out of thin air is obviously the more worse option. So is the Fed going to continue with the money printing? Is the United States now going to use this time of crisis to increase its regulations, to increase the power of the federal government, to make more laws, more regulations? And again, there's so many acts that are being passed now that are going to be passed because of this. And it's just more regulations. And again, this all goes contrary to what Trump promised and what Trump advocated for. Or is the U.S. going to level with the American people? Is it going to try to fix the problems, which obviously are going to cause even more pain in the short run, in the short term, but in the long term, it's going to be extremely positive, and it's going to completely fix the problem in the long term. And I don't think the United States is ready for that. Part of fixing the problem will obviously going to be the Fed leveling with the people and raising interest rates. And what it could do, I mean, there's two scenarios that could happen in this with the Fed in this scenario that I'm stating. One could be the Fed can actually finally just go back to a standard where it can back the dollar with something, with the metal, right? Whether it be silver or gold or something. The dollar needs to be backed by something. And again, you can have sort of a fiat currency. And again, I'm saying fiat currencies are bad. But if you were to have a fiat currency, as if you have a productive economy, you could sort of, in a way, back your currency. If you have a productive economy, you could say, hey, we're going to accept those dollars, even though they have no intrinsic value. We can accept them, and you could buy. We can give you dollars because you can come back to us and purchase our produced goods with those dollars. So although they intrinsically don't have value, they sort of have the faith because the nation that's issuing the fiat currency is a productive nation, is producing supplies, has a very strong economy, and in a way, the fiat currency could sort of survive, sort of, in that scenario. But again, obviously, the ideal is to just have no fiat currency and have a currency that's based on or backed on by a metal. But the United States doesn't have that, unfortunately. The United States is not a productive economy anymore. We don't make stuff anymore, right? And again, it's the a lot of liberals, and when I say liberals, I use that term loosely. I'm talking about people, Democrats, socialists who want to advocate this premise of larger government, more government. So when I reference liberals, that's who I'm talking about. But a lot of liberals, the problems that they bring up are sort of correct in a way, right? Oh, the financial sector of the economy is way too bloated. We don't make any things. Yeah, I mean, I agree. We all agree with you that that's a problem. But your solution is to make that problem even worse and make the financial sector even larger. And what we're saying is we need to the reason why we have this huge financial sector is because all we're doing is we're moving money around from the Federal Reserve. There's too many dollars that are in circulation right now, and there's a whole industry that has been created to manage all this money. And again, in an ideal economy, the financial sector is important. It allocates money to businesses, and it allows you individuals to invest in companies. And it's in an ideal economy, capitalistic free market economy, the financial sector is important, but it's not huge to the point where it's larger than the actual productive economy, right? The productive economy is supposed to be the largest sector of the economy because that's where all the goods and services are being produced. And then you have the finance sector, which is obviously in a smaller proportion to the larger productive economy, and then that financial sector, helps manage the money that's being circulated. But what you're seeing now is obviously we have no production, we don't have any factories, we don't make stuff anymore, and that's taken an extreme toll on the economy because this fiat currency that's being circulated, what is it backed by? Essentially, we don't make anything, right? We're constantly buying stuff from China, we're importing stuff from all around the world, we're giving these nations our dollars, and now during a time of crisis, especially now when these nations want to actually use their dollars to buy stuff, because obviously if they're sick, that dollar bill isn't really going to do anything for them. They want to use the dollar bill to buy something. They're going to come back to our shores and they're going to be confused about the empty shelves. There is nothing to buy with our dollar. And then obviously it's just a domino effect. Then these countries are going to go to other countries to see if they can trade their dollars, and then that receiving end of that country is going to also not want the dollars because they can't do anything with the dollars. So, and then this is obviously the fate of every fiat currency because ultimately its intrinsic value is the fate, and when people lose faith in that dollar because they can't do anything with it, and the country that's giving out these dollars doesn't have anything to back the dollars by, and it doesn't have to be a metal, it could be just the production of the economy, the productivity of the economy. If it doesn't have that, then obviously there's no point in them holding on to these dollars and trading their hard work, their labor, their own productivity for something that can provide no productivity on its own. So now obviously, can we see this thing escalate and for these events to actually happen? Nobody can really say because obviously we've gotten off the gold standard in the 70s. It's been around 50 years, 40 years, sorry, since the 70s. Oh no, 50 years since the 70s. And really, I mean, 50 years on a fiat purely fiat paper currency system now. It could last another 20 years, 10 years, but we're definitely starting to see every single crisis that happens now. Whether it be every crisis is going to lead to an economic crisis, but every economic crisis that we have now, it sort of puts a strain more and more on this system. And I feel like more and more people are going to start waking up. And ultimately, it depends on the people to bring it into the system. Because if everybody's still delusional and they still have faith in the system, then the system will never crash, because it's the support for this fiat currency is still going to be there. So excuse me. When people like, for example, Peter Schiff say that this crash is going to happen, it is going to happen, but unfortunately, if people are still in the delusion, this thing is still going to be going around. So I think we need to help spread this message and help people wake up. Now, people are naturally going to wake up, but we need to speed up the process by making them wake up now, because the longer it takes for them to wake up to this, the more severe the problem is going to be. And that's why I think it's important to see more media outlets trying to educate the public on matters like this. So, unfortunately, I don't think the U.S. right now is fully, I'm going to use the term, woke on this subject matter about, the fiscal policy of the Fed and the whole U.S. dollar system and the currency system. And again, it's not just the United States; it's other countries around the world that are also under this delusion, which also promulgates the problem, because they're continuing to buy these dollars thinking that they're going to have value. And they think that maybe the United States in the future might go back to becoming productive, but if they keep buying up the dollars, they're not going to allow that to happen. So if I rewind to the two paths that the United States has right now, I definitely see that we're going to take the first path for now, at least. Because what you're going to see now is more, again, people are still under the delusion that the Fed can fix the problem by just printing money out of thin air. And again, we're in the 21st century, so I shouldn't say print money out of thin air, but it makes money out of thin air. And if people are still under that delusion, there's going to be, and we're going to start seeing inflation, and that's a certain thing. I think a lot of people say that there's going to be deflation, but I don't think there's going to be deflation, because in order for there to be deflation, you need to have a sound economy, because ideally, when you have a recession in an economy, the value of everything goes down, right? There's less people, there's less money circulating, and more people are saving money, and there's less people spending. So in a recession, more people have money saved up, and less people spend money. In a time of recession, in an ideal capitalist free market economy, and what you see is prices of things start to go down, because the demand of things goes down during a recession. So in an ideal economy, yes, there is deflation, and actually, it's ironic, because during times of recession, the people who lose the most are the wealthy. The poor and the lower middle class actually benefit from recessions, because everything gets cheaper, and they don't have that many liabilities. They don't have big assets that could lose value, right? It's actually a benefit for them, because they are going to have some money saved up, but nothing that they can really invest in or something. It's probably a small savings account that the average poor person or lower middle person has in it. Again, I'm talking about in an ideal capitalist economy. And now that everything got cheaper, now all of a sudden they could start buying things. And then the value of houses go down, the value of businesses go down, and then maybe they could get a house that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford. So in an ideal scenario, during a recession, it's actually a free lottery ticket for the poor and the lower middle class, because now they're able to get all these things at a much cheaper price. And the people who lose the most during the recession are the wealthy, are the rich, that see their entire assets lose value, that see all their investments lose value, and they actually end up losing much, much more than an average poor person. And what you see is unfortunately, the wealthy has mingled in with politics because the government has been able we've given the government the ability, the power to have such an effect over the economy that the wealthy has mingled in with the government and sort of make them not have a not suffer the consequences during a recession. So when they see their assets going down, when they see the stock market going down, they quickly want the government to do something to help boost that up. But actually, that's the way it's supposed to be. They're in a correction. They're in a recession. The stock market value is supposed to go down. You are supposed to lose money. All the malinvestments that you make, you are supposed to lose money on those, and nobody's there to help you. That's the economy. That's the free market trying to correct your mistakes that you've done, and it actually provides an opportunity for the poor and the lower middle class to actually rise by increasing their standard of living because everything else becomes cheaper. So that's the ideal situation, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen. We've given the government too much power. The government is obviously gonna be in the interest of whoever of the powers that it has and who it affects, and unfortunately, that's going to be the wealthy. And we've given the government that power. So again, I'm not saying that this is an entirely wealthy people problem, and I'm using that term loosely, but it's a problem because we've given the government the power. It's not Wall Street. We've given the government the power. So the source of the problem is emanating from the government. So again, in an ideal situation, that's the scenario that I've just listed out. That's what's supposed to happen. But what you're seeing now is the opposite. You're going to have an inflationary recession where people are not going to have money. And guess what? Prices are going to rise because there's so many dollars that's in circulation aren't actually supposed to be in circulation. You have all these other foreign nations that now have dollars, and now during a time of recession, especially when the government is printing money and giving people money, giving everybody $1,000, more people have money. They aren't actually more productive. They just have more money in their pockets, more paper money, and now they're going to try to bid up the prices of goods. And plus, since the economy's going down, there's less goods out there. So there's less goods, the supply is down, and the demand is increasing. The prices are going to go through the roof during a recession under this condition that the government has unfortunately made for us. So again, in an ideal economy, you see prices go down during a recession. And although supply may stay the same or decrease, prices go down at a much faster rate, which again makes it better for the poor and the middle class. But in the condition that we are now, in this mixed economy that so many people like, where government mingles with the economy and touches things, you see the opposite happen. You see during a recession, supply goes down as usual, but now demand is increased because the government thinks by giving people more money, it's going to help them. But all that's going to do is bid up the prices of the goods that are there. And again, that's the thing that the government can't do. All government can do is increase demand, but they can't increase supply. Because increasing supply would mean making companies more productive, lowering regulations, lowering taxes, I'm going to repeat it again, making the economy more productive. That's what increasing supply entails. The government can't do that because that's the much harder route. That's the route that government actually has to give up its powers. But all the government can do is increase demand by printing money, and that's easy. Anybody could do that. But what you see is that's actually going to have a negative effect because the price of the goods that the government can't. The supply of the goods that the government can't touch are actually the price of those goods are going to increase, which actually makes everybody worse off. So that's unfortunately what we're seeing now, and I think that the prices of goods we're seeing them are gonna start increasing, and that's without a doubt. That's without question. The price of goods are gonna increase, and yeah, we may see the stock market increase a little bit, but that's all just inflationary. That's not real economic. That's not real. That's not real economic growth. The stock market is not naturally increasing by these companies being more productive, being more profitable. And the ratios should be showing that, but they're not. These companies are just more leveraged up in debt. They have more debt. The supply is staying the same, and you're seeing just more investors who have more money from the Fed again bid up these prices of the stocks, and you're going to see the stock market may go up. But again, it's all inflationary. It's nothing is real. That's why it's a bubble. It's not real growth. It's just a bubble. You inflate something that's small, which is the actual state, right? Our economy is actually intrinsically really small, but you've just inflated it. But when you inflate something, you don't really you give it the illusion that it's big, but in actuality, it's just filled up with air. You just inflated it, and if you were to deflate it, it shrivels up again, and then it's back to its original state, which is small. But you don't actually have real economic growth. So unfortunately, that's what we're going to see. You're going to see government just increase demand, the Fed printing more money, and you're seeing more people. I'm surprised that I'm seeing more mainstream media sort of at least offer criticism to the Fed with its quantitative easing policy now, which you haven't seen before, right? Before, everybody was on board. It was just a one-time emergency, but you're sort of seeing, I mean, it's still the same thing, and it's ironic because you're seeing a lot of these millionaires and hedge fund investors and all these people that they bring on to on CNBC actually want the Fed to print up all these economy, because who is it going to benefit? It's going to benefit them. They're not going to lose value on their assets. They're not going to lose value in the stock market. The Fed can help prop everything up. So they're benefiting at the expense of everybody else. And unfortunately, that's the route that the U.S. is going to take. And it will, in the short term, it may recover by giving people money and making an illusion that everybody has more money. But what you're going to see is the price of goods start increasing, and then that's when it's going to hit the fan. And I thank you guys for listening. Stay tuned for my next podcast. I'm going to try to do one every day now that I have more free time. But stay safe, guys, and I'll see you in episode 3.